noble citizens, we must bypass a life of dormancy and vice to pursue the generative endeavor of a hard day's work. The benefits of these pursuits are not secured by chance or charity, but through the merit of your character and the firmness of your convictions. It is you who are planting the seeds of trees whose shade you know you shall never see.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Broken Wind podcast. Hello. It is me, your host, Butler, the original YouTube commenter, most annoying account on Blue Sky, trying for it at least, give me a follow. I'm here with the super producer himself, Vane, and our resident ketamine expert, and my dear friend who took the night off from gay sex to record this podcast with us. So welcome, Axiom. Awesome to have you as always. How you doing?
Oh, no problem. It's actually the afternoon here. That's the main reason why I'm not having gay sex. Nah, I'm just kidding. My wife's out of town, so I was like going on Grindr, and some dude was like, "Come over last night," and I'm like, "Bro, I'm not driving 45 minutes right now." Like,
yeah, well, and you being on the West Coast, we were gonna need you to talk about like the actual craziness that's going on over there. I want to take a second at the top of the show to just say we're gonna, always trying to have some fun, but these are quite grim times we're living in. I think there's a non-zero chance we're experiencing martial law by next week.
Seems that way.
Also, at this very moment, it's hard to, this sentence sounds unreal even saying it, but literally at this very moment, Greta Thunberg is on a flotilla less than 200 miles off the coast of Gaza with a bunch of aid and being threatened with weapons by the Israelis. So it's possible that by tomorrow, Greta Thunberg has been murdered by Israel. So hope that doesn't happen. Shouts out to her. And also wanted to give I
have that ready to go.
Yeah,
if you want,
and we'll get to the flotilla again, I'm sure. But I also wanted to give a shout out at the top of the show to just everyone who is Mexican American and just all of, in general, Mexican people. You're welcome here in my book. I've said it before, and I'll take this stance to my grave. Were I to be supreme dictator of the United States, Texas is becoming a part of Mexico. And all I ask from Mexico is your help in suppressing the most reactionary elements of Texas society. So, like I said, I don't give a fuck. That's how I feel. You know what? F that place. Texas, and Viva Mexico. Yeah, so that's my shouts out at the top of the show. You guys have any shouts out for the top of the show too?
I don't have any shouts out right now.
No shouts out?
What about you, Abe?
yeah, sorry, trying to think of something funny and edgy to say, but I can't quite come up with. I've already shouted out
I could do shouts out to Elon.
Shouts out to Gay Pride. I mean, for sure. Shouts out to...
Oh, yeah.
I'm mad at Texas, too, because of what happened with the guy who plays John Redcorn over there, Like, that shit's heinous, the story of how that man got murdered. So, it's a long-standing grudge, but that didn't help. So, can I take you two fellas on a little voyage with me into the entomological world for a second? And I promise this will tie back to the damn news.
Sure, go for it.
It's a big word.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can take me there.
You don't know if you can handle entomology, brother? All right. Have either of you heard of the New World screwworm?
No, tell me about it.
You asked about this the other day, and I did not inform myself for the sake of you informing me today.
So it's a great story about science and international cooperation and where we're at as a country and as a society. So the New World screwworm is a f***ing awful bug that is one of many biting flies endemic to the Americas. And this one is particularly nasty because it has a tendency to lay its eggs inside of you, and they burrow down when they are born. So they, in a corkscrew fashion is where the name comes from. So they're hard as to get out. They leave these nasty infectious wounds. They kill cattle because of how bad these wounds can get, and thus cause, millions of dollars in livestock damage. Obviously, you do not want to have this shit happen to yourself or your pets. But it was gleaned by some shrewd people over in the USDA a long time ago, I think in the 60s or something, that the New World screwworm only reproduces once after it's born, and that if you irradiate those males or all those in just the right way, that they are alive and functioning, but they're sterile, and then you start dropping those sterile worms onto places where they breed, you can drastically cut the populations of these bugs that are being born. That's pretty neat, right? Some USDA nerd figured that out just because this government was like, hey, you need some money to blast grubs with radiation for some reason?
Hey,
Go
isn't
for
that
it.
government planning?
Yeah. No,
isn't that like the sparrows?
It's not even planning, man. You know, that's the it's like it's just asking questions for the of it, and that's what's like. You know, this will all tie back to DOGE. But, like, this guy was like, these things are annoying. I wonder if we can find a way to get rid of them. And this was something he figured out. So, unfortunately, because the Mexican border is very long, you can't just drop these all along the Mexican border and expect that to work. They tried that. It's just too much mileage to cover. So they went to the government of Mexico and they said, hey, how about we try doing this a little further down, this very skinny landmass, to a shorter border and start eliminating bugs in both of our countries. And the Mexicans said, great. And that's still a pretty big border. And so they kept working this plan down to Panama, where the isthmus meets the rest of South America. And that is where, to this day, there are facilities that drop thousands and thousands of these radiated screwworms onto the forests of Panama to prevent these nasty bugs from finding their way up into North America. And that is why most of the Southeast and the Greater Caribbean does not ever really experience these awful little bastards. Isn't that interesting, right, folks?
Yeah, very interesting.
They call it the Great Bug Wall. So
the bug wall. Interesting.
And obviously it relies on international cooperation and goodwill.
Climate stability
too. And there's not a lot of goodwill going around between the U.S. and Mexico these days. And obviously they're trying to make things more efficient with just cutting things senselessly, just like, you know, irradiating random bugs to see if we can kill them in a specific way.
Yeah, right.
This wall is starting to break down. They have found, because of just like delayed shipments. I was joking about this 3 months ago on Blue Sky, and then I was like one of those lathe of heaven things where it's like, haha, but I know this will happen. This is being the essence of being
it's
a
crazy.
leftist. And just recently I see reports that they're starting to see these further and further north in Mexico. We're going to have these in the Greater Caribbean by the end of this year, mark my words. So look out for that if you live in the southern regions of the Greater 48.
Yeah, on top of that, I think maybe it'd be a good time to transition into the DOGE cuts.
That's what I was thinking,
and we can talk about the upcoming storm season.
I'm setting you up, and you're
going to be horrific. Yeah, it seems like we've talked about storms before. We'll try to get those episodes out. We've done 2 storm episodes. They're not currently public, but yeah, at some point we will try to get those out to you. And storms have been an area that we've covered before, and I expect that this summer is going to be a particularly bad one with the combination of cuts, but then also with NOAA, the agency, predicted that it will be an above average hurricane season with approximately 19 named storms, and probably about 5 of them will be considered major, is what they estimate. And there's just a ridiculous amount of cuts going on in that regard, like half the weather balloons in the air. And we have videos of weathermen warning us how catastrophic this is really going to be. I don't know if you've seen any of those things, but some of that stuff's actually pretty interesting.
Well, it's just crazy. Can you imagine, like, just for a second, both of you, pretend you are vested in some way with the tremendous powers of a state. Maybe it's the United States. Maybe it's you're the president of Micronesia through some hilarious series of events. You met the right person. You're on an island vacation, whatever. And you're in charge of this little island. You're the bigwig. You're in charge of it all. And you're being asked, okay, we've got these resources. How should we invest these resources? And someone says, hey, let's make sure we're watching out for the weather. Let's invest in monitoring the weather, buying resources that help us monitor the weather, working with people who are already monitoring the weather. Let's do that. What the kind of leadership is it under those circumstances to be like, I don't know, man. I think we're probably over-investing in knowing what's going on with the weather. Like, that is such a deranged point of view to think that you can underinvest in something like that. And it's such a private equity point of view too, because the reality is that like weather forecasting is a good, like just purely economic terms, weather forecasting is a good investment. It's not a flashy investment.
Yeah, it's like the definition of a public good.
Yeah, and it doesn't have a lot of, it doesn't have clear, obvious, huge returns, but it has very important universal marginal returns for not just like individuals and vulnerable groups, but also businesses. Like it's a very important utility that any competent state, especially one that has populations that are vulnerable to weather-related crises, needs to be investing in. It's just insane.
Exactly.
Insane to think.
Yeah, can I show you this weatherman who's like making a desperate plea for these cuts to be reversed? Right. And he shows basically a flashback of himself at a younger age and then goes on to say, I'm not going to be able to make those predictions for you anymore. Right. And it's a pretty scary moment. Like this guy's just like revealing on the weather, like, yeah, weather's not really going to be the same anymore. Right. So, yeah, here it is.
Right? When is it going to turn? John, it's not turning. It's coming straight to us. It's going to turn. All right? The turn was never forecast to be on Sunday. The turn isn't even on Monday morning. The turn will come Monday afternoon, Monday evening, into Tuesday. Remember that? That was about 6 years ago. That was Hurricane Dorian, as it was absolutely devastating the Northwest Bahamas as a Category 5, sat over that region for 2 days. It was headed straight west. Lots of people in Florida were concerned the hurricane was heading here. And as you've grown accustomed to my presentations over my 34 years in South Florida newscasts, confidently, I went on TV and I told you, it's going to turn. You don't need to worry. It is going to turn. And I am here to tell you that I'm not sure I can do that this year, because of the cuts, the gutting, the sledgehammer attack on science in general, and I could talk about that for a long, long time, and how that is affecting the U.S. Leadership in science over many years, and how we're losing that leadership, and this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country, all right? But specifically, let's talk about the federal government cuts to the National Weather Service and to NOAA. Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed. Now, this type of staffing shortage is having impacts across the nation because there's been a nearly 20% reduction in weather balloon launches that carry those radiosondes. And what we're starting to see is that the quality of the forecasts is becoming degraded. There's also a chance because of some of these
cut this off too, because
yeah, that's a good spot. I think anyway.
I encounter a lot of I work in I will keep it vague. I work in the world of business. Right? I don't want to give anything away, but something I feel I am observing a lot of in the world of business people and the way they think is that there's this real obsession with the idea that you only need to know certain things, and all extraneous information beyond that is some sort of waste of time or attempt to take advantage of you, and thus you need to be constantly whittling down everything you are exposed to be only what is advantageous to you. And anything other than that, you don't want anyone to ever present that to you. And it's literally how these people get surrounded with sycophants past a certain level of power, too. But it's
yeah, totally.
Brother, you cannot, you can't do the weather like that. You can't,
right. That's going back to what you said about if you had your own state and how weather reporting would be one of the basic things. You ask, what type of person wants to make the weather reporting more
and without even being
it's a very specific type of person that you call a libertarian conservative. Right. That hates the concept of government, that wants to make that a thing of the past, so that while most of us acknowledge, oh yeah, weather reporting They're really inaccurate. They've always been inaccurate,
Right.
But in a dialectic sense, it's certainly better than nothing to have a forecast a week out and it's inaccurate. That happens all the time. We all understand that. And yeah, we can blame the failure of the government on that, but it's certainly better than nothing. And the only type of person that wants to just completely get rid of that and make it so that you don't even have the concept of the government going out and forecasting the weather for you, that takes a very specific and evil kind of person.
Who thinks that you can make a profit on it. But here's what I was going to say, too, is like, the utilitarian argument of it for it, too, is like, how cool is it that there's a whole field of people whose job it is to just let balloons float into the sky and be like, what's going on up there? And it allows them, through careful observation and science, to be able to discern the relative future of the weather. Like, that's sick. That
and part of the consistency of that is getting consistent funding, which relies on the government, the federal government, having consistent funding, not having these fucking bullshit artists who believe that for the first time in history, it's okay to cancel on the bill after you've ordered it. That's what the debt showdowns are always about. It's like, you already ordered the shit. Now they serve you the bill and you think you can walk out and not pay the bill. That's unacceptable.
You know what's crazy too is I remember early on, we should probably start transitioning more to the Elon Trump conflict, because I think that's a big area we'll want to talk about a little bit. But
we're getting at that. Like, these cuts are Elon's fault, and this episode is going to be largely us shitting on Elon, and I think that we're setting this up, showing all the cuts that this guy's responsible for. The more we can talk about that before we get into the Elon Musk and Trump breakup, the better, as just the context, so that we can say sayonara, fucker, like goodbye.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I forget what I was going to say about it too, but it's like the utter incuriosity of these people is just so frustrating. Like I said, that like the private market will fill in this space. Like, it's what they really truly believe in their heart of souls. And it's so sad, because it's like, what?
Or
is
not,
it really so
or
expensive?
They don't care, because they also recognize that there's a benefit to just simply making people no longer look to the government to tell them what's the weather going to be like next week, which is a basic expectation. Why are these
worms crawling out of my body?
Yeah. Can someone look into this? And they're basically saying, don't fucking expect the government to research that sort of thing. Don't expect it to research why people are getting cancer. If you get cancer, pay for your own damn research, and that's it. If you can afford to treat your own ringworm, excellent. If you can't, then fuck you. That's the worldview that these people have.
Yeah, I mean, what were you saying there, Ax?
Oh, no, go on, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, weathermen are such a cool subgenre of, like, micro-celebrity, too, because they're, like, no one really gives a fuck, honestly. They have, like, 6 months out of the year where it's, like, sometimes they get to really pop off, and, like, this guy, in Florida specifically, there are, like, it's the only place where, like, people really develop these, like, cult followings to weathermen because of things like they'll make this one call at this one time that will, like, actually blow people away to be like, oh shit, that's actually, and like that, all people will remember that forever. But for the most part, they're really endearing people, because they're just, a lot of them are just like nerds who think it's cool that you can, that the weather is cool, because the weather is boring. It's literally like the subject of small talk, and like stereotypically boring small talk, but tropical weather is crazy shit. It'll kill you if you don't pay attention to it.
And so many of these people won't be employed if the state doesn't employ them. That's just the reality, that the private market does not pick up that slack. We lived in a time period before the government did research on weather reporting, and the private market did not pick up that slack. So the reality is that that's not going to happen. And I think, how often do you see a mainstream weather report where someone is making that kind of impassioned plea, saying that it's come to this reality that I have to beg you to understand that this service we've been providing you for decades of weather reporting is super fucking important. Please do not let it get cut. And you don't see that kind of cry on the mainstream media, but you do see it in independent media. Were you going to say something real quick?
Well, I wanted to say too, like I wanted to ask both of you if either of you know people in your personal lives who are in the process of or considering basically fleeing the U.S. for another country.
In my personal life, no, but I've heard I've heard stories
have you
of
met anyone,
celebrities and people like that, like media figures who say that they're considering leaving. Why?
Well, I meet a lot of people in the course of my work, and I've met no small number who are in the process of, either fleeing back further north to where they used to live, or they are just getting ready to flee outside of the country for one reason or another if they have the resources for it. And it's not just like older retired people, it's young professionals, it's any type of person you can name I've met who is reconsidering their investments in the U.S. and a lot of the times, particularly the Southeast. It's very interesting. It seems like there's a huge exodus of people moving back into a lot of regions of the Northeast right now.
Yeah, I don't personally know anybody. I do think that's like one of those things that's like only actually available to people like, I mean, not necessarily like just with greater economic resources. Like there's other types of resources you can have that can maybe help you with that,
Right.
But yeah, I don't really know many people who have the resources to do that,
Right.
It's a thing too of like, there's only a certain cross section of people who have the ability to leave, like, and it would be good,
Yeah, right.
Like a lot of the people who have that ability, like, are not going to be fucked over.
That's why I think I'm only seeing celebrities say that, because they have the means to, whereas most of us regular working class people don't have the option. So you're figuring out how you can hunker down and survive this administration, which seems more realistic than gathering the funds you need to move to another country, which just doesn't seem realistic, I think, for a lot of people, especially the lower income people.
Right. Yeah, and to that point, I mean, you saw China offer support to the Harvard people who were going to get kicked out, but that's obviously not going to work for every single one of those people, depending on who they are. It might not be the kind of what necessarily they want. So I don't know. That may be jumping ahead a little bit to what Trump's been up to. So where do you want to? You're steering this ship of state at the moment there, Mr.
Let me
Mr.
keep
Vane.
steering it. So the next place I want to go is on the note of the cuts that have been made. I think another good one, I was just talking about a mainstream weather reporter. My next clip, I think, is an independent reporter who's letting people know what actually has happened with these cuts. And there's this internet reporter that basically reports on a storm that's happening that we're going to talk about in Kentucky, and the other state was Missouri, where at least 27 people have died. So we've actually now seen 100% real life consequences to DOGE. People have died. That's not to mention people dying from the cuts to U.S. aid and projections of as many as hundreds of thousands of people who will potentially die. So I want to take some time and just focus on what a piece of shit Elon is and the consequences of Elon's actions right now. So this, I think, would be a good clip that will get us transitioning into just thinking about all these cuts and the consequences that have happened.
What we're talking about here is a big deal. I am so surprised that we don't have an upgraded warning from the National Weather Service.
Oh, it's Ryan Hall.
One of the things that I
watch this guy all the time. He rocks.
I'm
sweet.
This is the National Weather Service in Jackson,
Kentucky. This went kind of viral.
National Weather Service here. This is one of the places that's understaffed right now. I don't know if you guys have been following the news, big layoffs across the National Weather Service and stuff like that. That might be a result of a problem that we're having there. If so, that's crazy. That's crazy. We're about to have a large tornado go through a very populated area with much less warning than what there should be.
Wow.
As a result of that. Guys, all I can tell you right now is if you know anybody in Somerset, call them. Call them right now and let them know what's going on. I'm not kidding. Like, this is a big deal. This is a huge deal. We've got a massive tornado about to slam through Oak Hill, Bourbon, and Ferguson here.
That's crazy.
The good news is, once again, that the sirens are going off. The sirens are going off in Somerset.
In one of the towns.
If you're in Somerset, this is, guys, this is an incredibly dangerous situation. We don't have any visual on this or anything. It's going to be hard to see even for the locals. Like, this is, we're getting into a little bit more of a rugged terrain. But we might have a huge tornado going on.
Yeah, you can pause this.
Yeah. So he's saying that there is no resources in place right now to alert people of active tornadoes that are happening.
Right.
They no longer have the ability to sound the alarm in any way for the people currently experiencing the tornadoes.
Right. Well, I watch that guy all the time. He's actually really interesting. That guy Ryan Hall, because he's like, that's what's going to be filling in the gaps in the wake of these things being cut. It's terrible to think.
Terrible,
but like,
to think.
Not only does that guy provide, and like, look, he's the best possible version of what we're describing here, because that guy not only goes out of his way to not be overly like fear-mongery, but he also like mobilizes a massive on the ground like mutual aid organization around storms and their impacts after he, does all this monitoring and warning of people. So that's the kind of stuff that these freaks think should be filling in the gaps. But you can see him right there because these are like scientific people. He's like, look, there's resources that are not being deployed and it's going to cause consequences. I want to say one other thing about Elon too, and DOGE leaving, like Elon leaving. It's like there were a lot of people on Blue Sky joking about big balls leaving too, and it's like, brother, if you think this is the end of the careers for any of the DOGE operatives or the DOGE department, I wish I had your naive optimism.
Yeah,
right. They're gonna be here for ever. Those freaks are never going away. Elon's gone because he couldn't handle his K, but it's like,
ultimately we'll talk.
Those freaks are sticking around forever. Yeah,
we'll get to talk more about that. What do you want to say about
that, Axe? We need to hear all your thoughts on the Elon ketamine stuff.
Ketamine insights. So first of all, ketamine rules. Second of all,
noted. You take notes, audience.
Duly noted.
So one of the primary negative downsides of habitual ketamine use is addiction. Now addiction, because your tolerance goes up so much day after day of doing ketamine, it becomes a really expensive addiction. So it's actually pretty rare because you kind of have to be exorbitantly wealthy. And wealthy people by and large are less likely to get addicted to things, because addiction is primarily
it's
an economic thing. Yeah, it's an economic thing for most people. Yeah. Coke addiction is you can be middle class and be addicted to Coke. Being addicted to ketamine.
You ain't gonna be middle class long.
Yeah. If you're doing it every day, if you're doing it once a week or whatever. Now, the other thing about doing too much ketamine, so if you're really doing it I think about once a month is about the minimum where some people start to have bladder issues. Yeah. And that can be really damaging, and that comes from habitual use. And that tends to happen to addicts who will use perpetually higher and higher doses of ketamine to try to get the anesthetic effects and deal with the pain from having up bladder. So, there's some reports
and painful pissing and stuff too.
Or the pain of existence of knowing that you've harmed millions of people.
Knowing you're Elon Musk.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting because ketamine is the one that everybody's kind of talking about. I think partially because ketamine has been having its moment for the past 5 years or so. You know, it used to be that cocaine was the big popular recreational drug for active but not addicted drug users. That whole culture was really into cocaine between about 2015 and 2020. It switched over to ketamine, so there have been reports that he's on a shitload of drugs, and he's most certainly taking a shitload of Adderall. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't want to say that all people who are prescribed Adderall have a problem or whatever. But I can also tell you that in if you give Adderall to a meth user who's an like active seasoned addict and it's in a clinical setting, they can't actually distinguish between just the effects of Adderall and methamphetamine. So like,
right,
that's something that people are kind of talking about way less because it's a little less spaceman, fucking.
It's not new,
out
right?
there, yeah. And there's also like reports of him using a large amount of psychedelics or whatever.
Yeah,
so
right.
like, notably, I think he's on the fucking one of the most up drugs of all, privilege.
Yeah, that's the real drug.
More to warp his
all the other drugs
than
stem
anything
from
else.
that.
Yeah, but like there are these reports of him having a pretty serious drug problem.
Yeah,
and speaking as a person who does, I mean, I don't use dopaminergic stimulants, but I do like most of the other drugs that he's like reported to use. I use MDMA, I use LSD, I use ketamine, I smoke DMT.
Use responsibly.
I want to point out that like I think his mind is much less warped by those substances, though that probably has something to do with what's going on, than it is by the fact that he's basically been living with monopoly money. And what I mean by that is like every single financial decision he's ever made in his entire life would have, if it went completely the worst possible way, left him enough money so that he would never have to work again at any moment.
Right.
This whole time. He's
never
ability,
had to. And he could never fail bad enough to not have to.
Yeah. So he's like not in the same universe.
Yeah, he's not living in the same universe as other people.
Right. Like you are essentially like a child if you live under like those sorts of conditions. Like it's like being like a kid who has like pretty upper class parents and they can buy them like literally anything they want and they do.
And until that New York Times report, there's no consequences ever to him doing drugs and being the CEO of 7 companies and whatnot.
The other thing I want to point out is like, nobody has ever really liked this guy. You know? Like his entire life. Like this didn't stop. See, this is the thing too about like the culture of like boarding school is that your parents don't raise you. You're raised at this weird school, and that school has like systematic sexual abuse kind of like built into its culture. It started in England. It was like, to harden fucking privileged ass white boys to be like harbingers of a fucking colonial empire,
this
like
is the
you had to traumatize
them
a little bit. Yeah, you had to traumatize them a little bit. If you just had some nice little Charlie, send him to Africa, he'd make friends with people. Yeah, you have to make him
you could.
Exactly.
Right, spot on. Yeah.
So like that's another thing I want to point out in like Elon Musk being a crazy piece of shit is that like. I think there is going to be a media narrative that is going to push a ton of focus on like the drug use.
Oh yeah.
Versus
like, totally.
What I think is the biggest thing is that he's like, have you ever met like really uber wealthy people? Because they're fucking freakazoids. Like that show Succession isn't far off, man. They're weird fuckers.
Totally alienated
they weren't
from
raised
reality.
by their parents. Right. They have like no consequences, but then they a lot of the time have been sexually abused. So it's like they've experienced some of the most horrible things, and yet like don't live in the same like material universe as anybody like who we hang out with or know.
Yeah,
and I think the real drug is privilege is a great point.
Yeah,
too.
that is a great point.
Because I'm a big believer that like. Much in the way that alcohol has shaped our society in really foundational ways, I think that we're moving further and further into a society that's shaped in a similar way by amphetamines and just uppers, overall. Yeah. But that's also, I mean, I still think that like Elon is a fucking special case. Like he's been a particular subject of the show for some time now. We were talking about during like some of the earliest budget conflicts. It was conflicts around China. It's all the same fucking diverging interests that are innate to like the capitalist class and why they are not fit to be the fucking overseers of society is because we look like it's as a country because we have this fucking asshole. Literally, I was thinking about this. It's like, can you imagine a Chinese equivalent to Elon who is in charge of their space program and their like electric cars and like their like satellite infrastructure, and he's getting on his platform and calling the president, telling the president that that everyone's like, hey, he's on the Epstein list, when everyone also already knows that.
Ironically,
like
I don't think you
Chinese
can
have composure. No,
I think under the Chinese socialist government, I don't think that's the model.
Do such a thing.
Yeah, that's not the model that they aspire to be.
There's so many stupid preconditions to even get to that point that they would never allow. And honestly, I respect them more for it. I'm just, that's how
right. And that brings us to, I think,
embarrassing.
Yeah, it brings us back on track of where I want to be talking about. There's been a few people who have reprimanded Elon Musk's character over these things like, the drug use, that's a smaller one, I think. But the killing of countless people, I think, is a massive issue. And I think an example of our society trying to insulate itself, a capitalist society trying to do that, is Bill Gates represented the former generation of capitalists and was, to an extent, more self-made, not at all self-made, incredibly privileged, but I would say
less of a fraud.
Yeah, less of an outright fraud than Elon Musk, yet his parents were well-connected. He was definitely a child of privilege, and he would acknowledge that. That's part of, I think, where you see a degree of Bill Gates being a superior human being than Elon Musk. And part of that is recognizing that the destiny of capitalism is sort of tied to him, whether he likes it or not, and the way he behaves, that Bill Gates has a responsibility that he recognized. And if they want to perpetuate capitalism and perpetuate this idea of neoliberalism, that the class conflict is truly over and we can live with these wealthy people in our society, like Bill Gates, because they give it all away to charity anyway.
They're have to invest in that illusion.
Yeah, they have to invest in that illusion. Well, Elon Musk is the next generation who has said, F that. Why the f would I invest in that illusion? F charity. I'm going to make it as brazenly apparent as what it is. I'm going to be the world's richest man actively killing the poorest people. And so there's a quote from Bill Gates where he said, "The picture of the world's richest man killing the world's poorest children is not a pretty one." And you hear several other accusations of people coming out lately condemning Elon Musk as the image of the world's wealthiest man and the things that he's now currently doing with that power.
Well, part of my dictatorship strategic relationship with Mexico and Greater Mexico, formerly known as Texas, is to purge the scourge of the Tesla Starbase outpost that they're building there on the Gulf, because Lord knows the Gulf of Mexico has been through enough pollution, and now they're doing this right on the border to all these poor people living right near it, many of whom are, Chicano, neo-indigenous populations. It's like, it's f***ing, just every step this man takes is he's a f***ing monstrous piece of shit. It's really good to see him go.
Yeah.
Should we get into the specifics before we get into too many more clips, do you want to get into the specifics of the Elon and Trump breakup, because it was a very, very funny sequence of events?
Yeah, definitely. Can I do this one last clip of basically
we both know this isn't your last clip, pal.
Yeah, it's not my last clip. The last one on this segment, you know that. But here we go. This one is a host condemning Lawrence O'Donnell, condemning the actions of Elon Musk, which I think is a good transition. He does bring up the words that Bill Gates had to say and the drug use, and then I think we can transition into telling the fun story of the breakup.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was one of those days when politics is fun. You get those days every once in a while.
Every once in a while. They're fewer and far between.
Every once in a while, you get one of those days. When Trump got COVID, that was one of those days. You get those days every once in a while,
All Just one of those days.
All right, here we go.
This was a child as precious as yours or mine. Evan's life was in our hands, and for 5 years, America kept him alive with antiretroviral medicines costing less than 12 cents a day through the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief, or PEPFAR. This was a program started by President George W. Bush and has saved more than 26 million lives so far. And
this is people he's killing through ending USAID.
Yep.
And built enormous goodwill
All related
toward the United States. Then along came President Trump and his freeze on most humanitarian aid in January. How could a 5-year-old orphan possibly obtain medicine?
Yeah, this is cutting out for me anyway. I don't know why it's cutting out again.
Died of an opportunistic infection.
I can't, this is unintelligible.
Told the House committee, no children are dying on my watch. Evan died.
Also, who is this? This is Lawrence O'Donnell. Who is this we're listening to exactly? Excuse me. I hate this guy.
Not a fan of Lawrence O'Donnell.
Let's put a pause. First off,
yeah,
I hate this guy. First off, can barely hear the clip. But most importantly, I'm laughing to myself because I'm sitting here like, oh, which one of Elon's private enterprises was he killing orphan children with? Like, forgetting that he just shut down USAID and just thinking like, oh, was it like a cobalt mine, or was he testing... Is this unsafe cars? Or
yeah. There's just so many countless ways. Children? It's all the time he's racking up a body count.
It's just a theme of his existence. So I forgot that USAID. Yeah, dude, the death toll on USAID is such a sad thing. And we've talked about it as a projection of American soft power, but it's like, yeah, they're just deeply incompetent and deeply cold. And just disgusting. And don't ever make me listen to Lawrence O'Donnell again. That guy's
That's true. I hate that guy.
It guy sucks. He sucks.
He does suck.
He sucks.
But yeah, so we can start going through the timeline of
Let's talk about the timeline, dude.
Want.
Oh, you got a timeline pulled up nice.
There's a nice timeline article I'll link to.
Yeah.
And then
I mean,
this might have some tweets and clips and stuff. There's some great clips that I really would love to play.
Let's go through this timeline because it was interesting. And like we talked about in a past episode, that like there were already every single piece of legislation that this administration has had to handle so far has caused some amount of friction between Trump and Elon Musk. And this is just the final culmination of the exact same conflicts they were having before. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that Elon's business interests require him to express the kind of internationalism that is just what capitalists do, which is I deserve the right to exploit resources internationally. I deserve the right to free trade, as they call it.
Yeah, that's my right.
And the Trump administration's new, like, jingoistic nativist strategy of trying to reshore industrial production without central planning is in conflict with that drive that, Elon's not the only one that feels, but it's like he's the stupidest one of all for this, because it's like, brother, well, how did you get this far? And not like it's this. Yeah. So let's look at this timeline again. Pull up the timeline.
Yeah. So the timeline, the very first events that happened, I think I noticed this timeline I have doesn't show what I noticed to be the very first slight. And to me, that was when Elon says he's in this interview that ended up being controversial for a few reasons. He said, let's just stick to the tariffs, that one, because the questioner asked him a question about if he has any feelings about the students being deported, since he was one of those students. And he said, I think I just want to stick to spaceship questions. And then, which is pretty funny. I hope I can find that one.
Yeah, he started ranting about it, like, without being asked, like, a few minutes later, too. He started, like, ranting about Trump. It was pretty great.
Wondering what your thought is on the ban on foreign students, the proposal. I mean, you were one of those kids, right?
Yeah, I think we want to stick to, the subject of the day, which is, like, spaceships. As opposed to, presidential policy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was told anything's good, but...
No.
He's so good at interviews. He should really make sure he's giving as many interviews as possible.
Yeah, right. So in that interview, he accidentally lets it slip out. At first, he says, he's asked about the tariffs, and he says, well, tariffs will always affect things a little bit.
I noticed that all of your businesses involve a lot of components, a lot of parts. Do the tariffs and the trade wars affect any of this?
tariffs always affect things a little bit.
And then, he's asked that question about the students being deported, and aren't you one of those students? He says, I think we'd like to stick to spaceship questions only. Then he complains about DOGE being a whipping boy for all the cuts, and it's not really responsible for all of them. But then he says, it's not like I approve of everything the administration does. And that's the one that really set off Trump, I think. So here's this clip.
Right.
And, it's not like I agree with everything the administration does. So it's like I agree with much of what the administration does, but we have differences of opinion. I
can't hear
things that I don't entirely agree with. It's difficult for me to bring that up in an interview because then it creates a bone of contention. So then I'm a little stuck in a bind where I'm like, well,
can you hear Max?
Speak up.
No, I can not hear him.
But I don't want to.
I turned it up more.
Yeah, we can't hear him at all.
I also don't want to take responsibility for everything the administration's doing.
We can't hear the clip.
He said, did it get better towards the end or no?
We don't need to go over the conflict with a fine-tooth comb, because we've seen the broad contours. Start with the tweets from the 3rd on the CNN article, because I thought that was a good timeline.
It is a good overview, and that was the first thing I think that this one didn't talk about.
Right. That was when the thing is, it was like parabolic, or maybe that's not the right word, but it was like there was a murmur for a while, from the jump almost. And then on the 3rd, roughly, it really just escalated super, super quick. And it all happened mainly on X, the everything platform.
Yeah,
as
right.
Everything does.
There was also another article in the murmurs you were talking about where Trump asked the question, was it all bullshit? And that one happened even before the exchange in the tweets that Trump basically brought up how he was told that there would be $1 trillion in cuts, and then it was revised to 800 billion. Now it's less than 175 billion, and keeps obviously getting revised down to a massive proportion. But the irony is Trump was president and somehow actually believed that there could be $1 trillion of cuts to the U.S. budget, which is like, how can you have served as president for 4 years and not be familiar with what could actually realistically be cut and what could not? Right. And how could you not know that Elon was completely way off by an order of multiple orders of magnitude in his estimation.
Again, it's that utterly incurious executive spirit I was telling you about, where it's like there's this deliberate avoidance of information that may not be what they want to be exposed to. But I want to get to the specifics of the real breakdown that happened.
There was this article of a fatal doubt about the idea of, was it all bullshit? And then, Elon quietly leaves Doge, I think, to attend his business, as you said. And that's when, on day one, you have the 3rd failed rocket flight in a row, which they called at SpaceX, and they called it a rapid, unscheduled disassembly instead of an explosion, which is what it is. And,
that's a very funny term. Rapid unscheduled disassembly.
It was great. And it was the day that he returned to his private companies, and he tweets, as my scheduled time. Elon tweets, as my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The DOGE mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. And so everything seems like it's going to be rosy from there, that he can walk away with a mild criticism. He says that one thing, and he thinks he can get away with that mild criticism, and Donald Trump proves no.
Right. But the problem is his business interests are he left to go deal with that, and that's why everyone was like, yeah, you probably should go work at Tesla again.
Right.
And the problem is his interests are inherently at odds with these motherfuckers. So,
course,
like,
yeah.
What is this you're pulling up? This is some CNN clip. Go back to the CNN article. I want to see the tweets on there.
So
okay, so
we have the first tweet.
This is the big beautiful bill is what drove all this context, because like we said, the legislation is what always seems to when Elon actually sees what the Republican agenda is, he obviously can't abide it as a business owner because it's bad for capital too. It's just inherently self-destructive as an agenda.
And part of what he was getting out of this deal that he's upset about is there are now cuts to the EV credits that people get for purchasing an EV. So fewer people will get money back as a tax rebate, which has been a subsidy for Tesla for basically its entire existence since Obama. It's
the most important thing making Tesla profitable. The idea that this legislation could actually crater the Tesla stock is not a joke and is like just the most incredible shooting itself in the foot the American economy could do. But on the 3rd, he tweets out, "Oh, I can't stand it anymore. Shame on you who voted for the bill.
It's a pork-filled bill.
And this is a canard. This is bullshit. Like, it's not even worth reading. Because
shame on those who voted for it.
He loves government spending. He loves government.
Of course.
Waste. That's what's good.
He's taken 38 billion, at least 38 billion in total in subsidies within all his companies. He takes 8 million a day, so he absolutely loves government spending. He just hates when 12 cents goes to keeping a child alive with AIDS.
It's starving children in another part of the world, or experimenting on irradiating flies. Just he doesn't understand as it doesn't benefit him. So next day he says, it more than defeats all the cost savings achieved by DOGE term at great personal cost and risk. So whatever. You. Next day, what's he say? Is my schedule? That's when that tweet you read before came out.
When he leaves and announces his scheduled leave, and he says Doge is going to be a way of life.
Those things were intersecting more than I realized.
Yeah.
So then on the 5th, he says, and we're recording this on the 8th. So on the 5th, he says, so he retweets someone in his classic like stoic statue way with just one word, basically saying Republicans don't want this bill, and Elon is speaking up for the majority of Republicans. Something that is not true in my opinion. It's like the reality is like I think this is pretty common knowledge, but I think most people would agree that between Elon and Trump, the Republican base is going to choose Trump in the vast majority. But anyway, later that day, he retweets. Oh my God, he's such a catty bitch. He retweets an old Trump tweet and says, "I cannot believe the Republicans are extending the debt ceiling. I am Republican and I am embarrassed." Right. And then Elon retweets that and says, "Wise words." So he's just retweeting old Trump.
I would love to bring up an old Trump tweet too. Well, we're talking about old Trump tweets. This is a great point to bring up the very old one where Trump says Elon begged him. So I might do the impression here.
You know what? If you want to flex those muscles, my friend, I'm not going to stop you.
When Elon Musk came to the White House asking me for help on all of his many subsidized projects, whether it's electric cars that don't drive long enough, driverless cars that crash, or rocket ships to nowhere, without which subsidies he'd be worthless, and telling me how he was a big Trump fan and Republican, I could have said, "Drop to your knees and beg," and he would have done it. Basically saying he would have begged like a dog.
Man, that is so awesome. Yeah, and add him to the list of people. What'd you say, Axe?
Oh, I just laughed.
It's awesome.
I mean, we can let ourselves enjoy this a little bit.
It's great.
They're two giant pieces of shit. I'm glad they're not working together anymore. And this did implode and become very. I mean, embarrassment doesn't really work on either of them. Shamelessness is their core tactic. But we can at least enjoy ourselves.
We have to, because it is also humiliating.
Yeah, dude.
That's for sure. It's humiliating to me as an American. But go back to the CNN article. I want to keep following through this timeline. So, it's fucking hilariously catty. And again, add him to the list of people who have been humiliated by Donald Trump and end up as one of his most loyal sycophants. It's a talent of his. But then he does this again with some other tweet, blah, blah, blah. So he's just, posting through it, as he does.
Yeah.
Trump confirms the deterioration of the relationship with Musk and says he was very disappointed in a tech billionaire after repeatedly blast the president's sweeping domestic agenda. And they said they had a great relationship. I don't know if we will anymore.
And that was the interview where he says the hilarious digs at Musk. There's two of them that are subtle here. I really have to play this clip.
Right.
Because you got to pick up on the subtlety of the digs. The first one is about...
No one's catty like Trump.
Yeah, it's extremely catty. So yeah, see if you notice the digs.
You saw a man who was very happy when he stood behind the Oval Desk, and even with the black eye, I said, "Do you want a little makeup? We'll get you a little makeup." But he said, "No, I don't think so," which is interesting. He's worn the hat. Trump was right about everything.
Okay, the first one he said was, you saw a man who was very happy standing at the Oval Office. So he's obviously alluding to the articles by the New York Times, which you already brought up about his drug usage.
Right,
that's Trump's way of acknowledging that he has heard about Elon's drug use. And then the next subtle dig is about the black eye, which Elon in that office meeting came in, and Trump mentions that he offered Elon Musk some makeup, and Musk turned it down, and Trump says, which I thought was interesting. And that clip is just so funny because you can tell he's so in the apprentice mindset that to him, that's the most like stunning gesture that someone could make. And possibly the reason, or at least one of the reasons that may have finally foreclosed Elon in his mind, that kicked him off of the apprentice, so to speak, is the guy denied makeup. And he says, that's interesting. And the reason he says that is he wants people like who are going to be telegenic and continue season 17 now of The Apprentice. And so to him, it's a interesting choice of Elon Musk to refuse to put on makeup to cover up his black eye when it would be so simple to cover up.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, look, the enemy of my enemy. I love seeing Trump do digs at Elon Musk. This he's good. The man knows how to roast.
Yeah, he does.
Like that's
like that. That tweet that he said earlier that I had just read, the old tweet. There's some fire in there, like about his subsidies and like his businesses would have never lasted without subsidies. And that's
the subsidies are so important too. Yeah,
that's the thing I want to highlight as we get towards the end of this episode. The grains of truth that you're not going to hear it from the Democratic establishment. You're only going to hear this same criticism coming from the progressive left, the genuine truth and what the problem is. And at times, these people are willing to completely weaponize it and to say the exact truth in a way that's way more precise than any liberal or establishment centrist candidate that you're going to hear. And that's part of what the populist appeal that they've created has been.
Right. That's why they keep being able to position themselves as anti-war too, even though they're obviously not, is because the Democrats are happy to let them outflank them on that position.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's infuriating. So because once again, it's obviously fake. They're trying to start a war in the U.S.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely get to that before we sign off too. But let's finish.
Keep going on the timeline
because I want to talk about it. Are we still on that timeline?
Yeah, we are. So Elon's got the black eye. He says that it's from his son X. There's some speculation maybe it's from Stephen Miller because he's left-handed and the black eye is on his left eye. That's pretty speculative though.
Right.
But then, so then we can move on to the next tweet. So
he says whatever. Yeah. So after the comments from Trump in the office, he says, this is his response, is whatever, keep the EV solar incentives, cut in the bill. He just is saying, stop, just cut the pork in the bill, stop the deficit.
Yeah, right.
whatever, shut up. So, slim, beautiful bill for the win, shut up, whatever. He said, and then false, the bill was never shown to me even once.
Yeah, so Trump had said...
So Trump makes another comment.
Yeah, Trump made a comment saying he had all this time to look at the bill. He should have known what was in the bill, essentially.
Right. And he said, the bill was never shown to me once and was passed in the dead of night so fast almost no one in Congress could even read it. Which is like, yeah, welcome to Congress, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
like,
they're always pulling that shit.
They do that all the time.
There was
You're
actually
also not a member of Congress or a
if it wasn't so funny,
like,
there was one that was ridiculously nefarious at the state level where like a Republican in the state schooling level
in Wisconsin,
basically literally did switch out the bill overnight, told everyone the bill was the same so they didn't reread it, and literally everybody was taken off guard because he actually just completely switched out the bills at the last second.
Right. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, but anyway, so we digress. So now it's 1 p.m. on what, the 6th? What's the date at this point?
Yeah,
this is happening. The 5th. On the 5th. It's 1 p.m. on the 5th, and now the beef is getting so... And this is basically, at this point, rapidly becoming a slap fight between literally the president and the richest man on earth. So it's like, I feel like it's hard to recount this without it sounding really mundane and stupid, without emphasizing, once again, this is a posting
the two most
beef.
Powerful men in the world.
Yeah, right, between the two of the most powerful men in America, one of whom is the president, and one of whom is one of the wealthiest men on earth, also one of the most important private actors to the military-industrial complex, and the owner of the platform that he's posting through it on. So Elon is claiming that Trump would have lost the election.
Which is an implicit acknowledgement that billionaires like him buy elections. I mean, he's just sort of outright saying, I had the effect of buying you into office, and without me, you couldn't have been purchased.
Is such ingratitude. Right. The next message is him saying that I expect more gratitude for paying for you to be the president. Yeah. Which, it's like, I don't know. There's people there are really people who look at that and are like, yeah, they should be more grateful to Elon. And it's like,
But that's what all these quid pro quos are for, you moron.
You have the brain of a peasant. You have a peasant's brain. You have a peasant's constitution. And you would be better served as a peasant if that's the way you see things. And it's okay. So we're still the 5th. Trump just went to bat for Elon Musk outside the White House. And oh my God. So now he's he's adding real Donald Trump about the Tesla showroom deal showdown that they did out in front of the White House. He's like, remember the good times about the remember car when sales demo they did together.
I love Tesla.
Remember that?
Yeah, that's what he's adding him about that. Like, don't you remember the good times, Trump? And so he, once again, posting through it. So next message is he's retweeting Autism Capital, which, okay. And Elon has been publicly and privately saying he doesn't care about the EV tax since last year. This direct from Forbes. Both, which, let's see if the entire board of Tesla agrees with that, folks. I don't know if they're going to be quite so gung-ho. But both he and Trump...
Without selling carbon credits, they aren't, profitable as a company.
Right.
Never have.
Very important.
Yeah. So Elon says keep the EV solar incentive cuts in the bill. Also cut all the crazy spending increases in the big ugly bill so that America doesn't go bankrupt. Calling it the big ugly bill instead of the big beautiful bill, of course.
Yeah.
Also
and
said
the next one says the same thing.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a beautiful big government bill. Either it's small and beautiful or big and ugly.
This also style of tweeting is very Trump-esque, because Elon is more just guy who's 6 years behind, but on Reddit, that's why. I mean, dude, there's no deader meme than Doge. Jesus, but Christ,
I
that's
know. Just the selection of Doge, right?
Fucking me, so
So
but yeah, this particular typing style and capitalization and sort of very straightforward,
punchy,
but sort of snarky.
Right.
Yeah, this is he's talking like Trump in The one that's sorry, can you scroll up to the one above Kill Bill?
He's talking like an embarrassing Trump admirer. Yeah.
The big,
literally looks like a Trump.
The deficit to 2.5 trillion.
The caps will increase. Yeah, the use of the weird caps. He's totally emulating Trump's messaging style. You're absolutely right.
But he doesn't have the sauce.
But it's also like there's an overlap of the people they appeal to. But then, as we're seeing, there's clearly a drifting faction starting to form where Trump represents more the anarcho-capitalist libertarian people, and Trump is appealing more to the nativist, white supremacist, racist. And they're drifting apart.
Right. Yeah.
Those two plates are pulling apart.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's talking about killing the bill, retweeting some bullshit, yada yada. It's time to. Then this was interesting as. And X, the Everything platform is literally just a weird sycophantic mirror for Elon now. I mean, it's a shell of what it ever was. Not that I was ever a big user of it, but. It is crazy that he put a poll on there asking if it's time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle, and he got an 80% yes response rate.
And that is an interesting way. That's the way he wants to reframe it. And at some point, the way that I think we're going to wrap this up, we're going to talk about Elon's. Hopefully, this is the end, but I kind of doubt it. We're going to talk about Elon's next steps. And we're going to talk more about it, but there's people who are asking what his next steps are going to be. Yeah. And it seems like, developing these sorts of polls and this framework.
Oh, I just wanted to point out that there's no way that poll isn't fixed.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's so fixed.
80%.
Obviously, 80%.
Yes. He obviously fixed that poll. He owns Twitter.
But just like a lot of the analysts who develop these, the abundance faction of the Democratic Party, these people who work on analyzing polls and figuring out new narratives that work, they're naturally going to be interested in the appeal and the influence that Elon Musk has owning Twitter and all the technology that he has. And so if this is the framework he's starting to develop, I think we ought to pay attention to this, that he's starting to say the 80% in the middle. It's not about the 1% and the 99%. This is his new track that he's going to set up. It's about the 80%, the middle 80, who's not on the extremes of either side. I guarantee this is the path he's going to start 20% on the bottom.
Well, and even that poll being totally fake, it is still what I mean is it's a crazy thing for someone of his power and influence to float that sentiment. Especially now with the Democratic Party in the position that it's in. I hate to say it, but I can see a lot of naive goofballs falling for the Elon party as an alternative to the Democratic Party.
We're already hearing that.
All the Democratic Party is able to perpetuate is further disillusioned people of all, stripe. And those people without proper education can drift any number of directions. So, it's still the 5th.
Yeah. He's speeding up a little because there's a lot.
Yeah, please. He reposted some bullshit, some Mario Nawfal bullshit, some food for thought, whatever. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm going to be around 40 more years, but Trump only has 3.5 left as president.
Posts about him, which is funny. He says something about Mike Johnson, which is hilarious.
Mike Johnson did speak on this. We don't have time to get into that.
But the bomb.
Mike Johnson did respond on this.
I can't believe
basically
how much this dude posts. It's insane.
It's crazy. Almost all of this is just Elon posting.
John Thune? John Thune?
It also really shows, I should have brought up his phone addiction.
Yeah.
Or something when we were discussing his substance problems earlier. But, besides that and the weird philosophical thing of a phone versus a drug. Right. But besides that, I also wanted to point out, this just demonstrates that he is not doing shit as a CEO, and CEOs do not work hard.
No.
Homeboy is on his phone.
Not at all. He was absent for months.
Long, dude.
Yeah. His businesses were doing
CEO
awful.
Of 6 corporations or something. Yeah. I mean, I will say, I think, like, the multiplicity of, like, business ventures and shit, too, does kind of overlap with, like, Trump's media strategy of, like, oh, yeah, you don't have to ask me about this fucking tunnel under L.A. that, like, doesn't really work well, and you have to drive a Tesla at 14 miles per hour through, like...
Too many visible failures. Like, no one's talking about like, the Trump stakes at the sharper image anymore, but, like, the fucking failed tunnel in L.A. is still part of the conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, like, that's sort of the thing, is, like, it's never about, like, solving an issue and, like, moving on. It's, like, having a constant, like, new controversy, or in the case of Elon, a new, like, business venture. And, you know, I think that is sort of part of why, like, they had this brief synergy or whatever, you know, although...
Yeah, I mean, birds of a feather.
Yeah, Elon's professed himself to be all over the political aisle at different points in his career, but, like... You know, I think we can all tell, like, come on, man. Homeboy's from an apartheid state. We always knew
he's been all about white genocide
really
from so early on, too. And I think we got to make sure to comment on that, too. Is, like, the investment in the whole, like, South African white genocide narrative and his push to make sure the Trump
reprogramming Grok.
Right. Oh, my God.
So that it would further that narrative, even though its programming was to always tell the truth.
It was apologizing to people. It was literally saying, I'm sorry, I can't help but bring up white genocide. It has been forced into my programming. I know it doesn't make... I know I'm bringing it up apropos of nothing, but it is just something... it was like the most
It's been
weird,
over-programmed
like
into me, and I'm sorry.
I've ever felt bad for Grok, and like it brought up a lot of weird feelings I'm not enjoying having. So yeah, like I
never felt like an AI was more enslaved than in that moment.
Oh God! So okay, keep going down. I want
to come on. That's what.
Yeah, there's more and more posting.
What were you saying, X?
I said, come on. That's what like. No, never mind. This joke is...
We're like basically speed running all of Elon's posting.
I forgot he posts so much. Oh
yeah,
my
here's
God.
him saying Congress is spending America into bankruptcy, showing every single year's budget as it grows. And then, shut up. So here comes Donald Trump finally saying Elon was wearing thin.
Big dog.
This is where we're finally getting motion.
On the 5th.
Yeah.
And, like, by this time, it's 2:30 p.m. on the 5th, and like the amount of posting Elon has already done is insane.
So you can understand why Donald Trump says now, Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do. And he just went crazy.
Right. And this is the one that I wanted to get to as well. I think this is before we even got to the bomb from Elon. But Trump says the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. Was always surprised that Biden didn't do it, which, again, crazy shot across the bow. And okay, cool, sure, yeah, do it, big dog. But at the same time, it's like, who else you got lined up? Boeing, the people you just told everyone couldn't even build your jet. Like, it's like
we need an Air Force One until our sets Air Force One is being built. But Boeing's a little bit late, unfortunately. So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force?
There's no one else in the pocket for them to... Elon fills a lot of very important roles for them, especially on the space side. So it's like, you're going to invest in NASA?
I'm glad that I screenshotted the next parts of the conversation, because in this article, they're actually deleted. It says error 404 not found, because these tweets have now been deleted. Thankfully, I did screenshot them.
Right.
So here's the big one from Elon, the big moment. He says, time to drop the really big bomb. At Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. This is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT.
So 40 minutes after Trump starts tweeting about him on Truth Social, this happens.
Yeah.
The Elon releases this, and all of the dumbest people in the world were shocked. Just floored. The stupidest stupids you've ever met couldn't believe what they were reading.
Especially since everybody knew that.
Everyone knew
this. We've seen pictures of him with, Epstein. Jesus Christ.
Brother, there are photographs of them from the 80s. No one is in more photographs with Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump. What the What do you mean?
Dude, Donald Trump wished Ghislaine Maxwell well on the first day of her trial.
Yes, he did. I forgot about that. You're right.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well, whatever it is. I don't know the situation with Prince Andrew. Just don't know. Not aware of it.
What the
Like,
dude, that was, but obviously, again, it's like, this is stupid in the context of like a dumb guy who didn't know this already, but in the context of the richest man on earth, a very important government contractor, the owner of this platform, saying this about the president. Like, even it's the same with this poll, where it's like, even with this being something totally known, it's like, just this being the dialogue for the day is a profound moment of American humiliation, which I'm here for. I'm all here for it. Like, that's kind of how totally. I feel. But like, God damn, that was like such a weird thing. It was so weird to know how to feel about it, because I saw it and I was like, holy shit. I was like, wait. Oh, but of course. Like, but didn't we know that? Like, it was kind of like, had this like dumb guy moment of like, whoa, dude, and then being like, oh, actually, I knew that like for years. So it was.
Yeah. And I don't know if you, speaking of dumb guy reactions, I don't know if it's worth it at all for you to get into the Joe Rogan reaction, because it did happen on air. That went viral. I don't think we have time either.
I don't think we'll have time, but I want to at least mention the fact that, well, like, we'll just describe it for, like, far be it from us to ever recommend listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, but Joe Rogan's interview with Kash Patel was one of the most impressive acts of self-sucking I've ever seen in my life. And like, as an admirer of autofellatio, the way in which Kash Patel was able to sit there in front of Joe Rogan and say, look, could a man who's lying to you about how much access he has to the Epstein files and what he's going to release suck his own dick like this? Like, that was really, that was really like how it all went. And in the course of that meeting, in the course of that podcast recording, all of this beef we're describing with Elon and Trump is going on. And so that tweet we just read comes out while they're recording this. And Kash Patel,
I do have it ready to go if you want.
I mean, if you want to play that, like, this shit is so funny. I just hope that Axe can hear this, because it's so, God, it's so funny. It's so awesome.
It's going to come up because it's been going on since we've been recording here. Elon and Trump seem to be in a bit of a spat. Joe, you want to check the tweet that Elon just put out?
Turn it down a little bit.
Time to drop the big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day. Jesus Christ.
I'm not participating in any of that conversation between Elon and
Have a
Trump.
nice day, DJD. Someone should take his phone away.
They're going back and forth about different things. And
This man has been sitting across from Joe Rogan for the past like 40 minutes telling him, look, Joe, I'm telling you, this Epstein thing, it's really just a nothing burger. He just killed himself. Yeah. It's nothing to see here. And we're going to give you everything we can. And, oh, wait, Joe, the cameras went out. I'm just hearing about this for the first time. Like, no exaggeration. That is the conversation they've been having before all of this.
It's crazy. Yeah. Like these years old articles that Kash denies having heard of. It's like some of the most incredible lies that you could possibly imagine a director of FBI making, like not even acknowledging that he's heard the story that the footage was deleted, just completely gaslighting and pretending that nobody had ever heard that story before, even though it was a major story when it came out.
Disgusting sycophants, and I think we're kind of running out of time here anyway.
Yeah. As we get towards the end, to wrap it up, I think we can wrap it up with the Elon Musk story. And
we've talked enough about Elon. There's something I wanted to talk
the future of him on the way out.
Now,
you bring up what you want.
I want to talk about something with our guest here before we go, because it's really important. It's going on right at this moment, and it's on the West Coast. And we've given Elon plenty of airtime, but right at this very moment, the National Guard has been called into the riot. Basically, we're experiencing LA riots 2.0, and there is a lot of people in LA fighting back against ICE to resist their inhumane theft of human beings and kidnapping from the ICE detention center. So people are having conflicts with the authorities. The National Guard has been called in. Trump is calling this a rebellion and threatening to send in Marines. This is what I talked about at the top of the show when I said by next week there is a non-zero chance we're experiencing martial law. So he's sending in the National Guard.
I believe he's nationalized the state National Guard of California at this point. And is basically controlling them in the way that he wanted to with Harvard from the top down, like under a conservative
deal. And I wanted to make sure we didn't miss on this for the news update, at least, especially while we have our West Coast correspondent here. And I don't know, where you are exactly, but
I'm like 8 hours away from there.
Okay, so you know nothing. Well, thank you for.
I mean, I know as much
related
as you guys
to that.
do.
I know the Small Business Administration announced that it's closing its LA offices, which is very fascist, citing that Mayor Karen Bass's lack of cooperation with ICE is so frightening to them that they have to.
Small Business Administration.
Yeah, that they have to leave, and that's going to be interesting because that is where they're claiming all of the student loans are going to get shifted to. So, what does that mean for people who have student loans in the state of California? I have no idea. None of us do.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No, it's all good. You were cutting on me a little bit too there for some reason, but it's just something I wanted to bring up for us to reflect on a little bit because, it's something we brought up on the show before that, not everyone in America understands the idea that, Mexican nationalism has a different relationship to indigenous people than American nationalism, and it's not a perfect one, but it is a lot less genocidal and a lot more holistic, and you can really understand a lot of the antagonism between these ethno-nationalist freaks and the Mexican populace of this great nation as a continuation of the genocidal indigenous sentiment that colonized this country in the first place. I think that's something again that I've met plenty of white people who think it's a crazy thing, but the more you look at it, the more it seems obvious. And California, similar to Texas, has lots of sections of it that we're arguably a part of Mexico. We're definitely indigenous land that was very important and populated before the people got there. So this conflict is not a new one. And the people of the Mexicano people in California, I admire their tenacity and their motorcycles and their Mexican flags. So all respect to them and shouts out. Anything else you guys want to get off your chest before the end of the show? I just wanted to make sure to cover that a little bit.
No, that's great. I'm glad you covered that. I wanted to before we closed out. I think it'd be nice to say that Elon Musk is going to go away after this. Mm-hmm. We also didn't mention what's next for Elon, which I think is potentially a lot more. Steve Bannon called for Donald Trump to go after his businesses, and there's talk of that Trump is going to do a lot more. Right. Yeah, he's going to do a lot more punishing of Elon Musk potentially, and this feud could get a lot uglier. And on the other hand, you have now Democrats. The conversation is opening up of people saying maybe we need to rely on Elon Musk and his money in order to help us win, and that's becoming a emerging pathway, especially intersecting with the abundance liberal campaign. Yeah, those freaks
what were you saying,
that I'm sure we're going to see more and more of as well.
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, you're just getting green over there. Sorry.
It's all good. There's a bunch of kids on dirt bikes riding by, so might just be picking that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oakland, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much we couldn't cover. Yeah. We didn't even get to guess the question. Should we do that?
We'll save that one for Crocus. I saw that on there.
All
but
right.
I love, the connection, what were you just talking about with some of the other externalities from Elon leaving? That's what it is. Is like
the creating a new party.
Elon, and Elon being a critical part of the American military-industrial complex. I have such a hard time speculating. That's what makes him hard for me to speculate on, like, what is the future for him. But it is so crazy to see this conflict developing. It's not surprising, but it's like thinking about the implications of it with what his companies represent for American like national interests. It's very interesting to think about. So,
it's one thing to contextualize before the very end, too. One little recommendation I would have is I often recommend Behind the Bastards. It's a great podcast. There's a great one on Alfred Hugenberg, who was basically the money behind Hitler, who helped Hitler get elected and ultimately ends up having a falling out with Hitler because he's a deeply unlikable person. And as history rhymes and repeats itself, essentially, this podcast a couple months ago predicted that this fallout was going to happen. Just basically judging from kind of the signs and repeating patterns of history. And Elon Musk really does seem to fit the role of the Hugenberg to Trump's Hitler, essentially.
Right. And I hope he doesn't absorb too much of his
He doesn't
smoke.
last very long.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'll tie it back to the conversation at the top, too. I hope that Elon Musk gets bit by a screwworm and has little maggots sticking out of his body. But
that would be a great thing.
That's what I hope. That's all I hope for the future of him. Do you have anything you wanna shout out or anything at the end here, Axiom, before we sign off?
Read Testo Junkie by Paul D. Presidio. It's really fucking good, and it'll make you think about testosterone differently. And I also just want to say that Joe Rogan and Dana White are getting gender-affirming care.
100%.
It's literally testosterone.
Yup.
Yeah. All
they
men
fucking
on steroids are getting gender-affirming care.
Yep. I'll co-sign that. So, signing off. Thank you for joining us, as always, dear listener. Thank you, Axiom. Always a pleasure. And y'all stay safe out there. Keep wearing your masks at the protests and stay rowdy. And peace. Let's sign off. Bye, y'all.
They can't send me to my knees, yeah.